Hi everyone, I'm Aoife Gallagher and welcome to this year's illustration workshop based on The Summer I Robbed a Bank by David O'Doherty and illustrated by Chris Judge. I loved this book from start to finish. There were so many different hilarious and pretty unusual stories and adventures in there, so it was hard to just narrow it down to one. So today I'm going to show you what I thought would be a good scene to work on, which was hijacking the Irish National Bank mobile service van. It's a bit of a mouthful. And with the different characters involved and also a few other elements of the story surrounding it. So here is my finished piece. Don't worry if that looks quite detailed, that's because I do a lot of detail. I'll show you how I did each part and give you some tips and tricks along the way. So if you are ready, we're going to get started. So, firstly, we're going to draw just some outlines for our scene. As you can see here, I've already added the pen. So I'm just going to show you how I mapped out the different parts of the illustration. So, just do rough hills, then we're just going to leave a bit here, as you can see, for all the sheep and the police car and the money. So just kind of block out that bit first, and then we're going to also put in where we want the van to go. So sort of in the center, doesn't have to be exact, and just draw whatever helps you to just show where you want the mobile bank van to be. Okay, so whoopsie. See, the good thing about pencil right now is you can rub that out and just doesn't have to be exact, just enough to show you where you're going to have all these different parts, like here. And again, don't worry about the different things in the background as much at this point. We'll just add them in a moment. So when you're happy with the different main parts, we can then start to add in a few different squiggles and lines and circles, just different shapes to show some of the other parts of the story, because we don't want to miss them out when we're adding our paint. So my funny looking car, some sheep, a lot of sheep. I put a lot of sheep in this as they're brought up a lot in the story throughout, and also play a very vital part in the heist of the mobile bank van. So for now they look a bit like clouds, which brings us to our clouds in the sky. You don't need to do this. If you don't want to, you can add a sun, you can make it rain, whatever you feel like. Rain probably is more accurate for Ireland, as I'm sure you all know. So just a few more. And we've got Uncle Derm's van in the background, but you can add whatever you'd like. So I just added a few little parts from the story, as I feel it also adds to the whole lead up to this scene in particular. So we've got Uncle Derm's van, which gets mentioned a lot throughout the book, and we've got here the X marks the spot and a little shovel to show when Kitty and Rex were thinking of digging for treasure. So I've just added a little bit more outline and definition, and I'll just show you a few little tricks for the finer detail before we add pen. This can be the tricky part because the smaller it is, kind of the harder it can be to add in. So for now, that just looks kind of like shocked emojis. We'll call it that for now. And then we'll make them into their characters properly with the pen. But once you really add color to this, it'll kind of show you a bit more. So we'll give our sheep some heads and legs and a tail. And you can do this however you'd like as well. This is your artwork as well. So however you'd like the sheep to look. And then just kind of make little markings for some carrots, the wonky carrots, the road, anything that will help in the next part where we add the colors. Okay, so just a few wonky carrots. It all looks a little bit scribbly for now, but this is how I plan. And it's quite fun because you can just kind of be more free with it and not worry as much. Plus, it's pencil. So like I said, you can rub it out and correct it as you go along. So I'm just, may not look like it now, but these clouds are now sheep. And then the wonky carrots. I'm just doing some squiggly lines so I know those are the carrots. My Garda car is looking a little bit interesting here, and this is probably not very accurate, so feel free to recreate an actual Garda car for yours. And like the van itself, if you'd rather redo it to look more like the van, feel free to do so. I took a bit of inspiration from Chris Judge's illustrations. So as you can see, I just added a little bit more pencil detail. I'll give the sheep some legs and a head as well. And just make sure we know what everything is so we don't accidentally paint over the wrong thing. Okay. We'll leave the details for now of the van. We can add those with pen. And okay. Once you're happy with your sketches with your pencil, we're gonna start to go over them with pen. So I've done that already here, as you can see. So I'll just show you a little bit with this page now, and then I'll be continuing with this illustration as this one's a little messy. Okay. So as you can see, I've got a few different pens here. I'll just quickly show you. These are quite good. They're all different widths, so they make different markings and outlines. And some are more like a marker, like this one and this one. And then this one is a bit more fine and detailed. You can get even thinner. I'm using a thicker one today because I don't want to do too much fine detail. It can take a long time and we don't have that long for this video. So once you've got a few pens or, like I said, markers, pencils, anything you feel could work to add your outline and details in. So we're not doing all the detail in pen right now. We're just outlining the main things, the main characters, objects, sheep, landscape, etc. So that when we come to the painting stage, we know what we're painting. So here we go. Okay. So I've got one of my pens. It's a dual marker pen. So I got this one online on Amazon. I think it's a Japanese brand and it's quite good for manga or animation drawings or cartoons. So I use this for my illustrations, just for the kind of thicker lines. So it has this is the thinner side, and then we've got the thicker side here, which is more like a marker. So if you want to use a marker, that's fine. This is quite thick. So here you can see I used the thinner one, which I do prefer for my work. So I'll show you a little bit. That's the thicker side or the thinner line here. So just outline. So I've begun to just define the characters a bit more and the sheep. And over here, I've got Uncle Derm and Ronan, again, quite rough. So, okay, so here we've got the outlined pen details. If you'd like, you can rub out any pencil marks. Sometimes I keep it in because it can add to texture for the piece. And we're going to get ready to paint. Today I'll be using watercolors and some watercolor pencils that I have. These look like crayons. They're woodless watercolor pencils, or you could use regular watercolor pencils. If you don't have watercolors, you can use any other paints or colored pencils or markers, but just make sure they dry quickly. This is why I like watercolors, because they do dry fairly fast, which will be helpful for the last stage where we're adding our detail in pen. As you can see, I have a few different widths and types of paint brushes. These are all suitable for watercolor. Just be careful, some of the brushes may start to have bristles falling off, or they may not be suitable for the paint that you choose. Usually they tell you on the packaging or on the paintbrush itself. So I'm just going to get a few different ones. Whoop, that fell. So I guess that one does not want to be chosen. So a few different ones. So yeah, we've got the thicker one. This one's a bit thinner, and this is the really thin one. You can go even thinner again, but I don't think we need those. Also, you'll need your jar or glass of water. Just be careful with this. If you've got another drink beside you, the amount of times I've accidentally started to drink my paint water is actually ridiculous. So that is a hazard. Be careful. Okay, so once you've got your water, paintbrushes, paints, or your pencils, markers, whatever you're using, ready, then we are going to start to add some color. So firstly, I'm going to wet my thicker brush, and we're going to do the background and foreground of the painting. So most of it is green, so we're going to start with a green, which I don't have a lot of this green, but no worries, we're going to go with this one. And just try to make it a light wash. That may be too light. Good thing about watercolor is you can play around with it. In. So this is normally called a wash of paint, wash of color, so that it just shows lightly what a layer, and it's great that you can add on top of it if you'd like. So I usually just do one layer first, let it dry, and then add another on top of that, just so your paper doesn't start to rip or ripple, and it's just easier that way too. So sky done for now. We can add more after. And then I'm just going to do a bit of the road. So I'm going to use, I'm going to make it a bit muddy. So a little bit of brown. You can do grey, you can do whatever you'd like. So I'm doing a kind of muddy looking road. So it kind of goes more with the colors used. So just a bit here, and this is going to be the same. So it's a bit like a dirt path. Don't have a black watercolor here, so I'm going to use my watercolor pencil, and I'm going to give my sheep some little black heads. They're the little black and white sheep to match their legs, which are black. So I may also add to the tires of the van and anything else that needs black. So Uncle Derm and Ronan in their van. I'm going to just go with the same color so it looks like a uniform. You can choose whatever you'd like. And then the facial features I will do in pen, as they're quite fine. So just add a bit more to my van so it doesn't look too flat or two-dimensional. Just quickly adding a little bit of texture and details. Again, You don't have to do what I'm doing. You can make this look however you'd like. If you'd want, you could even add a banana to the top or an ice cream cone, which happens later in the story. Whatever elements you'd like to add to this very silly scene that we're making here. And use your imagination. Okay, so okay. Now for the sign, I'm just gonna take my paintbrush and just do a little wash. I don't want to cover up too much. So you can blend it in with the rest of the van. And it's just a light one, but I want it to be clear enough that you can read it. And for my garter car, I'm just going to add a tiny bit of colour to it. It may not look like an exact garter car, but I don't want it to get lost completely in with the rest of my background. So just so it's sticking out a bit more and not getting lost in with the sheep. And then we're going to do the little siren at the top. I'm going to do that in a kind of turquoise. Just so, whoop, it's more like a blob. Just so it sticks out a bit more. And once we're happy with those parts, we can let it dry and just take a little step back from our piece. So while you're waiting for that to dry, you can get your pens or pencils, markers, anything ready for your detail. So I've got my pens ready, the different widths and different types of pen. I've got some watercolor pencils just for some extra detail if I need to, or you can use markers, whatever. So when your piece is all dry, you're now ready to add some details. So I'm going to take the finer pen and I'm just going to see where I want to outline and add some details. So here I've already added a bit of a facial expression, a little bit of shock, or they could be smiling, they could be laughing, whatever you feel they could be doing at this moment. So I've done it so that Rex and Kitty have just jumped into the van while it's taking off, and they're looking at the police car or Garda car coming and the big barricade of sheep. So I just find it quite good to give them a bit of an expression so that the viewer may see the madness unfolding in front of them. And we've got Uncle Derm and Ronan sitting in the front seats with their little disguise. So I've given them both little hats or caps, some glasses and some mustaches and beards. Whatever you feel like you want to add or however you want to add their disguises. And I'm just gonna do a little bit of filling in around them so they stand out a bit more. And then you can add just a little bit of marking to the van, tires, anything you'd like. You can also just leave it as it is if you feel like you'd like it to just have cleaner lines, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of mark work. So once you're happy with your detail, we're just going to leave that so that if anything needs to dry, it does. And then you're done. So I'm just adding in a bit of green to the carrots because I forgot earlier. So this is a good stage also to add in anything you left out. You can do this with pencil or marker if you don't want to use paint again now that it's dry. And so just adding in all the details now to tie it all together. So I'm just adding some extra detail. This is the smoke coming out. So you can do kind of circular motions or scribbles and just outline it a bit more. Anything you want to do for these different parts to just make them pop a bit more. We've got our sheep. So I'm just going to try and make them look a little fluffy. So by this, I'm just doing some little swirls or scribbles. You can do circles, or like the clouds here, you could just do this. It also shows a bit of detail. So however you want your sheep to look. So there we have it, our finished piece. I really hope you enjoyed it today. Feel free to come back to this video again in the future if you'd like to try it a different way, or you think, oh, it was a bit tricky that time. So you can always come back to the video. It'll be on the Read Donegal YouTube channel or their website. I would love to see your artwork that you've created from this workshop, and I'm sure Read Donegal would too. I'll put all of the different information of the sites and the hashtags and whatnot at the end of this video, and please do share, keep creating, and enjoy the rest of the events coming up. Bye.